cybersecurity is such a critical topic right now? And more specifically, what challenges companies are facing?
Absolutely, Deanna. That is a great question to boost me and then allow me to go ahead and start. So I'm going to click the deck with the first slides. I'm very excited to dive into this, and I think you will see why it is not just a technical discussions, but it is about all of us. It's about the awareness, and it's about our shared responsibility in today's digital world. So let's set the stage a little bit by imagining this. You live in a cozy home in a neighborhood where everything is rapidly changing. The assumptions analogy is obviously your cloud environment in this new industry of very fast-paced technology changing. You have just installed the best lock on your doors, right? So you feel secure, good. But one day you realize you left the window open. That happened to me many times, by the way. Likely I live in a good neighborhood. Despite such a great lock, you're still vulnerable. And that is basically the challenge of the cloud security today. It's not just about having the right technology in place. It's about our habits. It's about our vigilance and how we are adapting to this such evolving landscape. We cannot assume that security is someone else's job, because when we do, we leave the window open, just like in my analogy. The bad actors are out there. They're constantly watching for any opportunity to slip in and notice it. Those are not just random hackers. Think of them as sophisticated burglars who are constantly learning new tricks. And guess what? They have mastered not just in picking the locks, but also using advanced tools like artificial intelligence to get inside our environment. Sometimes they even find ways to convince us to open the door for that, you know? So the reality is that the trend landscape is full of actors, from hackers looking for a payday to insiders who either make a mistake or have a malicious intent, to well-founded criminal groups and even the nation state, which, by the way, those are the worst because they are very well funded. Each of those actors have a different motivations, but they all together, they all exploit the same thing, our intentions, our assumptions, and then the moment when we let the guard down. So as we explore the cloud security, we need to start thinking that it's not just a task on a checklist, but it is part of our daily mindset. It's about keeping all the windows closed, looking every door, and never assuming that someone else will do for us. Now, if the analogy of the neighborhood helped illustrate the personal nature of the security, let's zoom out and let's look at the bigger picture. The scale of a cybercrime is truly mind-blowing. Obviously, you can see the little icon of that smiling face, right? I was shocked, just like the smiling face right there, to learn that in just the first half of this year, over 1 billion people were affected by data breaches. I was actually a victim of data breaches. I gotta be honest, my wife and I as well. That is 5 times more than last year. To give you an idea, it's like every person in Europe. I'm saying Europe because, Diana, I know you are from the area. Having basically all their data exposed, not only once, but twice. You know, the scary part is not just that, is that those are not just rare case, not like, oh, one time kind of thing. They're happening all over the world, affecting millions of people. And the financial impact is huge. It's huge. But to 2025, next year, it's like right in the corner, cybercrime is expected to cost 10.5 trillion each year. Yes.
Did you just say trillion?
Yes, that is
That's
indeed a
more than
trillion.
oh my God, that's actually more than entire economies of a lot of countries. So this isn't just a
Exactly.
problem for big companies, it's actually a problem for everyone, right?
Exactly, Diana. I'm glad that you are emphasizing such importance here, and I hope that our audience feel the same exactly way. Now, let's talk about why the cloud is at the center of this. We all love the cloud for its speed and flexibility, and we all love a multi-cloud, right? Meanwhile, that is both a gift and a curse. It creates an enormous attack surface. And again, 2025 is around the corner. And again, by next year, 95% of the new tech initiatives are expected to be cloud native. That is an excellent news. It absolutely is. Okay. Almost every company are gonna do something developing cloud native application. But that means that 95% of such innovation is also a target of cyber criminals. The challenge is that while companies are rapidly adapting to this new way to do cloud, many are lagging behind when it comes to implementing proper security measure. And it's like building an high-tech fortress, but forgetting to put a lock on the back door. The statistics also back this up, saying that 82% of breaches involved cloud data. And around half of all the analyzed Terraform files for infrastructure as a code deployment, obviously those are used for ISC to build infrastructure, contains error that could lead to vulnerabilities. Here, we are not just talking about sophisticated hacker attacks or accidental oversight or accidental or misconfiguration. Those can create a huge security gaps. The misconfiguration, permission management are all too common today. It's like leaving a spare key under the welcome mat. It might seem convenient for many of us, but it is an open invitation for the trouble. And on top of all, those bad actors are getting more sophisticated, like I say at the beginning, every day, using sophisticated tools, sophisticated techniques, and obviously now with AI and automation to exploit those weaknesses at an alarming rate. So one more important thing to remember before we continue is that, and that's something that sometimes we forget, is that we need to remember, consider that cloud security is a 100% shared responsibility between you and your cloud provider. The level of responsibility varies on the services, whether it's IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS. A while back, a little bit less than a year ago, my manager, wow. Did I say manager? Too many manager word here. Sorry. Anyway, my manager told me or told us about a book on the concept of finite and infinite gain. Well, that got stuck in my brain to the point I had to research it. Honestly, I did the research, but I never read the book. But I got it a long summary version that I read about it. So I understood the concept. So why I mentioned this? Well, because in the context of cybersecurity, we can say that it is not a finite game, with set rules and a clear winners. Rather, cybersecurity is an infinite game, as described by who created this concept, James Carse, and then who developed that sort of like information, who exposed the information, Simon Sinek. This is because it's not a fixed endpoint, it constantly evolves with the rules, and then it has ever-changing players. So unlike a finite game, which is something like a football match, where those are very clear, where there are very clear winners and losers and a set duration, cybersecurity is about continuous improvement and adapting to a shifting threat landscape. As a matter of fact, success means ongoing adaptations, resilience, and awareness. And too many organizations think today that, oh, we are secure now, job done. But security is not something that you just fix in one day. It's always a continuous journey, and it's not a destination.
So I was wondering, this is actually a very comprehensive overview of the challenges that we've seen today, and some of us are very aware of what's happening. But as clear as it is to have cloud security as this complex, evolving issue, Giulio, I was wondering, what solutions are actually available to address all of these challenges? And maybe you can tell us a bit more about how Microsoft specifically addresses these challenges.
Certainly, Diana, absolutely. So let's start with the key to address those challenges. The key lies in how we view cloud security, and then that we should view the cloud security as an infinite game, not just a finite game. And likely likely at Microsoft, we see as an infinite game. At Microsoft, we are focused on intelligence. We are focused on automations, on collaborations, and to adapt to the evolving threats. We share threat intelligence, and that is essential to our approach. We integrate security with the DevOps so that we can ensure that it's built into the process right from the beginning. By doing so, we prevent issues before they start, making it very much more efficient and cost-effective than trying to patch those things later up. Imagine if you fix a leaky faucet in a brand new house versus waiting until the basement is flooded, right? It's much more effective. It's significantly less costly to build the security from the ground up rather than fix issue later on when we are in an advanced stage, or even worse, when we are in production already, you know? So our strategy is really about cover security from code to cloud, use intelligence to strengthen the protection at every stages. We also provide runtime protection for workload. There are across Azure and other platforms. We support AWS, GCP, so we can assure a comprehensive visibility and appropriate remediation stack. So this is actually where Microsoft Defender for Cloud comes in place. It is a CNAPP unified solution for multi-cloud environments and offer multi-layer security solution, which will protect everything from the application code all the way to the infrastructure itself. Think of it as having a guard watching over every part of your estate, whether it is your front door, your back door, or even the attic. Microsoft Defender for Cloud offer a multi-layer security by addressing every aspect of your cloud environment, from, as I say, from runtime protection to infrastructure security and DevOps process. Okay, so at the runtime, Defender for Cloud provides detections and response capability across your workloads, data storage, API, network access, server, Kubernetes, et cetera, et cetera. He helps with investigations, response, attack disruptions, threat hunting, and incident management to some level, especially when it's obviously integrated with other tools such as Sentinel and Microsoft XDR. And the infrastructure security, Defender for Cloud includes attack path analysis across application code, workloads, identities, privileges, data, API, DevOps, etc. Offer an agentless threat protection for vulnerabilities, misconfiguration, secrets, sensitive data, and malware. And it also covers compliance management, drift detections, and as well the protection, and integrates with the DevOps workflow, and it's also assisted by generative AI. For DevOps security, Defender for Cloud is able to secure your continuous implementation and continuous deployment, CI/CD pipeline, by hardening the continuous integration and the deployment process. By doing so, he's going to be able to secure your infrastructure as a code, your containers registry, your code, and will provide security guardrails for the developers. Finally, what about application code security? It offers statistic code analysis, DAST, software composition analysis, SCA or SCA, secret security findings, and containers image security to protect the application layer. So if we continue on with the Defender for Cloud, I want to start with one of the main pillar and aspect of the solution, and that is the CSPM, obviously the Cloud Security Posture Management. Okay, so when it comes to CSPM, Microsoft Defender for Cloud acts like a proactive expert that is always watching of your cloud environment. He spots important risks and see possible attack path across all your setup. And we use advanced code to cloud security signal to do so. Basically, Defender for CSPM looks for weaknesses, checks for potential risk, and helps you decide what to fix first based on the level of a risk. It also makes it easier to follow compliance rules and security best practices with the built-in standards and custom advices. So if we look the environment today, we know that we are constantly bombarded and flooded by security insights. By using Defender for Cloud and Defender CSPM, you will have a constant visibility on your cloud environment in your cloud data. And by doing so, you're going to strengthen your resources that they're critical to you and they're old sensitive information, and obviously lowering the chance of data breaches. With Defender CSPM, you're going to basically prevent repeated problems, and you're going to do that by tracking issues back to the original source code. That allows quick fix, and they will allow for you to stop vulnerabilities at the root, so at the root cause. At the end of the day, Defender CSPM boosts your security all the way through it, end to end. And then one more thing that I forget about it is it will add governance rules and will use other security tools for quicker response. When you enable Defender CSPM, you can manage your remediation by automatically assign the proper group, the proper owner, or you can also leverage native integration with the market leader ITSM products such as ServiceNow, which allows you to generate the service request or change request within the ServiceNow, where it's going to act as the source of truth for such changes.
So what I wanted to know actually, Giulio, given the broad security context of Microsoft solutions, specifically for Defender CSPM, and specifically when it comes to how are we able to protect everything in our environment, what makes this solution stand out?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry, Diana.
What makes Defender CSPM stand out if we were to go through all of these signals in here?
So one of the main strengths of Defender CSPM is the ability to bring together all the insights from different parts of a multi-cloud environment. So it's able to pull inside of his database the data that he collects from different sources like DevOps pipeline, Azure DevOps perhaps, or GitHub or GitLab. Important business aspect, cloud permissions, external attack surface, sensitive data that are stored on your database or storage accounts. So those are the things that is able to gather as insight and put together for an analysis. And when it does that analysis, it is very great at understanding all the potential attacks. What are the potential attack vectors? We call attack path. And the related risk against those resources. They're part of the attack path, but not only, even all the resources that are evaluated against security control, we call recommendation. Defender CSPM came up how an attacker might try to exploit your system weaknesses. And basically, it's like almost like, I'm going to give a very stupid analogy over here, but it's like having a crystal ball that shows your possible attacks routes. So you can strengthen their defense before any damage is done. Those insights obviously are helpful for you so that you can track the risk throughout the development process, so that you can identify complex attack path, like moving between different clouds, lateral attacks from one server to another, and from a server to a surge accounts to a key vault, so on and so forth, from a code, an application that has some exploitability into a storage account, so on and so forth. And then so you can prioritize what actually needs to be fixed, so that you're going to be focused on the most important resources. To make the things even easier, Defender CSPM also includes various ways to automate those fixes. It can be set up to automatically solve the certain problems as soon as they are funded. And it's going to act like a robot, right? Like a robotic security guard that will respond to those threats almost instantaneously. Not really, but the analogy is near to that. In this way, you don't have to wait for someone to step in, right? The system will take action right away, okay? And this is especially useful today in a multi-cloud world where things can get complicated very fast and signal can be flowed or your security teams. Defender CSPM will be able to give you a clear view of your cloud security across all those platforms, AWS, Azure, and Google GCP. It's like having a single control plane for your entire cloud setup. One more feature that stands out is the actual risk-based prioritization I briefly mentioned earlier, which improves the secure score. At the source of the security posture assessment, Defender for Cloud generates a score. It's like a credit score, but for your local security, right? Defender CSPM evaluates the security your security setup and will give you a score based on your configuration, on the vulnerabilities that are found, and the overall risk. It basically breaks down. That it is broken down into categories in security control, which we call recommendation, and will provide the specific suggestion how to improve it. But here's the key point, okay? Even with the powerful tool like Defender CSPM, we have to understand that technology alone is not enough. We need still a strong security culture in our organization, because security should not be seen as just the IT department or security department job. Everyone needs to understand the risk. Everyone needs to take responsibility for their action. And everyone needs to make sure that security is a priority at all levels. It's about it's about being aware. It's about educating each other and making sure everyone feels empowered to speak up if they notice something wrong. So cloud security is not a one-time goal. As I say earlier, it's an ongoing process, and the threats are keeping changing. So we cannot afford to stay still, or even worse, falling behind.
Would you mind showing us, being time conscious, also how that looks like?
Yes, I was actually moving to the demo. So first of all, give me a chance so that I switch over for the demo. I need to get my thing here. Sorry, it's on the screen. I hope you have a good view of my.
Looks good.
Right, oops. I wanted to make sure that I have everything in place. So, yeah, obviously now it won't work.
The demo gods, right?
Yeah, it won't work now. Oh man. Okay. All right, clear. So let's start with the demo. Let's start the demo with how you are going to ensure that you have the proper configurations of your Defender for Cloud when it comes down to your environment security. Defender for Cloud is pretty much enabled automatically, as default within the Azure subscriptions. And at the Azure subscriptions, you are getting at no cost the assessment of such, I'm saying, when I say such, is the subscription itself, regarding the aspect of the security postures. That is called the foundational CSPM. As you can see over here, it's actually free, and it is automatically turned on. There is no action on your side to do so. With the foundational CSPM, you are able to assess your environment against known security control. Those security control are packaged into something called Microsoft Cloud Security Benchmark. The security benchmark that I'm talking about, basically, it's built on the security control coming from CI, NIST 853, CIS, and then PCI DSS. Altogether will give you a really great view of the security score, but just give you that numeric percentage value, how you actually about how the security is, the state of security in your environment. Okay. So, but the security score by itself, it's not enough. As I explained through the presentation, the slides, you are required to have more information about how those misconfigurations, how those vulnerabilities, how those unhealthy resources within the security control that are assessed are affecting not themselves alone, but the entire environment, taking into consideration the ecosystem of your cloud, meaning like servers, application, containers, storage account, key vault, SQL database, open source database, all those components by themselves, they means something, but altogether will give you the full-blown view how the services are running. And that's what you need after you enable the foundational CSPM. So you need how to contextualize those weaknesses in the context of the other resources, which they all play together to provide an application or service, so on and so forth. And that is what Defender CSPM provides as at the core capability. So the second thing that you're going to do once you basically start evaluating what is the level of security within your environment is to enable Defender CSPM. You're going to turn it on, and then once you turn it on, based on your permissions, you will be able or not to enable the additional components. Those additional components, they are available automatically out of the box, and based on your permissions are going to be enabled automatically. If they are not, it's because probably you don't have enough permissions. So we recommend, although that you can enable disable, we recommend to have all those components or extensions, like someone likes to call it, on. So we like to have those components on. It's important to have agentless scanning for machines, which will provide a vulnerability assessment, software inventory, as well as secrets discovery, data analysis, all that, secret discovery for the server. It's also important to have agentless discover for the Kubernetes services, and as well as discover the vulnerabilities on this container without having an agent installed on it. This is very important if you are in the market of building application with the based on the containers architecture. Sensitive data is a must-have because it will give you a way to discover those files that contains PII, sensitive data, or the file itself is identified as, let's say, confidential. And then you have a permission management key, which is another component that must have because allows you to evaluate the level of permissions of the identities. And that is obviously all those, it's pretty much across your Azure, AWS, and GCP. One more thing, which is not over here, but is automatically enabled, it is the integration with Defender, with the DevOps security, which, by the way, it's also included inside of the foundation of the free one, and the artificial intelligence or general AI automatically discovery and posture management. It's included in there. Once you have all those enabled, then in a matter of 24 hours or so, you should be able to have a great view of your posture, not only limiting the secure score, but also having visibility into the risk level of each of those resources, the attack path they're being exposed, okay? So if you look at the risk level, you're basically going to go right in the recommendations. Obviously, we have a secure score sorts of summary here. But if you want to go a little bit more in detail, you can just go into the recommendation. And the first thing you're going to be, you're going to see is a list of affected resources per individual security control. Perhaps here it says management ports should be closed in your virtual environment, and the server is the Alpine server 1. Is risk level is critical. This risk level, it is calculated based on a number of risk factor. In this case, 4 risk factor. We assess and we discover that that server contains vulnerabilities for remote code execution. It's exposed to the internet, will provide lateral movement if it's breached, and obviously has a high score of the vulnerabilities. Altogether, makes the score for this server critical. Also, the server is identified as a resource within an attack path, and there are 3 attack paths there are being evaluated, presented, and then this affected resource is part of it. The other thing that is real important over here is that it is the actual server in terms of mitigation is not being assigned to anyone. So the server is there in a critical state, highly breachable, and then no one is taking action to fix it, or at least it's not being processed for such, okay? And as a matter of fact, it's unsigned and doesn't have an owner. So this is basically the gist how you actually look all the resources within your environment, respectively for the security control, which are those resources identified, and the risk level for that resource versus the other, and versus the risk control that is being identified for. If you look at the secure score, then you can switch to the classic view, and here you can actually see the score of your environment as a single environment or as a whole altogether. Here you should be able to see when it opens up the secure score, which is 48%. It's 48% because it's an aggregated result from AWS, GCP, Azure, and all the DevOps repository attached to it. I don't think I have a GCP, but I have AWS. But I can filter out. I can say, just give me the risk score for Azure, and that should change it. And within the Azure, I can also check the secure score for the individual subscriptions. Same thing for AWS and GCP. If you have a more AWS account or more GCP project, you should be able to filter as well through that. If you go back to the main recommendation by risk, this is the more effective view because it also projects that critical level of the resources. Now, let's say that you are also wondering, what are those attack paths? There are multiple ways to do that. You can go in the attack path, or you can basically click on the resource. If you click on that resource, you're gonna get a basic understanding, details, insights, and details about why this machine is found as unhealthy, how to fix it, automating launch the automated remediations if you have any. You can do other things to assign an owner as well, exempting all that. But you can look in the graph, and then through the graph you can see that there are 3 attack paths, and you can actually evaluate those attack paths where the server is actually member of it. You can see that the server being exposed to the internet and having like a highly exploitable vulnerability will lead a possible breach, will lead the attack to a possible breach using its own managed entity to access a key vault. And then you can also see the other attack path as well. One more thing you can do here is you can leverage Microsoft Copilot to help you understand better the notion of the inside. It can help you to identify, in a summary, the overall risk, and then even to automate some of the scripting that you will require to fix it. Now, going back a little bit here, then too many click here. Then let's say that I want to see the overall attack path. I can click on attack path analysis, and here I'm going to have a full visibility of those attack paths. Not only VMs, but we also have attack path for code that has been found through our DevOps security. Okay, but then Diana will have something to show over here. Later, you can actually go through the Cloud Security Explorer, and through here, you can basically either open some of the existing queries or build your own query to do more custom search of a specific risk condition by which you want to analyze your environment. One more thing, I mentioned governance. So one thing that is important to understand is that you can assign the remediation manually to an owner, okay, a team, but then it's a manual thing. However, you can create rules called governance rule that will automatically be initiated by an action, which is if a security control recommendation of level XYZ, with severity high, low, medium, kind of thing, or specific recommendation, like I'm showing a test over here. Yeah, I don't have a way to create over here. But you select your scope, and then the condition, basically, it's going to be like the actual recommendation or specific severity recommendation, and you can automatically assign the owner to fix it. If you integrate the Defender for Cloud with a ITSM, so with the ServiceNow, you create an integration from here, then you can also automatically create a change request right there. And finally, one more thing that I want to highlight is the idea of tagging your resources if they are critical to your business. You can control how a resource it is important to you by setting a rule which identifies that resource critical, and when the resource is identified as critical, will have a higher weight, higher score when we evaluate the risk. So with this, I'm pretty much done with my demo, and then I'm going to pass the mic back to Diana, which will cover DevOps security as well as Defender for API.
Perfect. So thank you so much for the demo, Giulio. It was actually pretty great to see the approach that Microsoft has in terms of cloud security. But I did actually hear a bit of the keywords that I want to drill down a bit more into today. And one of those is actually, how do we look at this solution? What is Defender for Cloud and how it extends also into our DevOps lifecycle? So Defender for Cloud, if we were to go a bit over a little bit of a summary, combines the security and the compliance capabilities into one single platform that is capable to provide this end-to-end security for the full stack workloads, but actually across, as we've seen, multi-cloud environments. So it does provide us full visibility. It does have agentless scanning. It does have contextual posture management, as we've actually seen, to proactively actually mitigate risk and not wait for it to happen, as we mentioned in the beginning. But also it has these DevOps integrations to help organizations be secure, look at the whole shift left approach, and look at advanced threat protection for different cloud workloads and real-time access controls. So I mentioned the DevOps security. DevOps within Defender for Cloud actually uses this central console to empower the security teams and developer teams to protect applications, resources, but across multiple environments. So we're looking at multi-pipeline environments, we are actually talking about Azure DevOps, GitHub, GitLab. So the DevOps security recommendations, and we've seen a preview of it, can be correlated with other contextual security insights. And this is mostly done to prioritize remediation in code. So everything from code to cloud, this is what we want to prioritize. This is what we want to understand. This is why within the DevOps security posture, you will have unified visibility into all of this. You will be able to strengthen the cloud resource configurations throughout the whole development lifecycle, but also prioritize the remediation in case of any critical issues that might appear in code and so on. The good thing about it is security admins can see the runtime assets alongside with the DevOps inventory within the Defender for Cloud experience. So what we want you to know, within the Defender CSPM experience, you'll get to see the automated discovery when it comes to DevOps. You'll see security insights, everything there is to manage in terms of DevOps security with different insights across code, dependencies, secrets, infrastructure as a code, container images, and anything that is around the impact and the vulnerabilities associated with this. But also, because this is of course important, take a look at creating custom workbooks, making sure that you have the different needs of different teams already in there. Now, this is going a bit more in depth into software development lifecycle. So with this visibility, of course, and we will see a bit around the demos, you can actually strengthen the security posture of your cloud applications. But as we know, security is only as good as its weakest link. So we do need to take a look at the heart of the CNAPP solution in terms of APIs. What are APIs and why are we talking about them? Securing the APIs is part of this secure platform that ties together everything, that ties API security coverage back to this broader security context. So if there are people who are not very well accustomed to what APIs are, there are these set of protocols, routines, and different tools specifically built for handling and for communication between applications. If you want it, it's these are the middlemen of apps and web services, allowing them to actually communicate. So you see why this is such an important thing to consider. If we take a look at, as I mentioned, APIs, the heart of the CNAPP solution, we need to make sure we put a lot of emphasis on this one as well. So even if we think about having cloud resource level protections enabled, as we see here on the slide as well, on top of web application firewall, on top of application gateway, there are still threats related to business logic abuse that are going to persist. And this is the one actually leading to the data breaches that we were mentioning, the huge context of it getting bigger and bigger. So this is also talking about service disruptions. This is also talking about denial of service or any of the other OWASP, and we will talk a bit more around this, threats that might appear. So threat actors are taking full advantage of this, and this is using the APIs as the primary attack vector. This is actually pretty apparent with the rapid increase of API attacks that we've seen. So the best way to look at it is what we can do on top of what we already have. So how do we? So we actually need to take a look at adding multiple layers of protection on top of that, and having this in-depth defense strategy. If you want an example, if a threat actor would have bypassed all proactive hardening controls and compromised an API, you need to identify the threat actor. You need to identify it in action, but you also need to take the necessary steps to investigate that attack. And, of course, take it into additional prevention controls. So this is why it is very important that we look at the API risk surface hardening. We need API-specific insights. We need that hardening across the entire lifecycle, from early stages of development all the way to production. And these are all features you'll find within Defender for API. And on top of that, you actually, of course, get to a broader cloud security security context, because, of course, everyone wants to know, how do I improve that secure score? What do I need to do? So this is why it actually happens like this, is because once security is actually handled in different silos, we end up with less than ideal situations and outcomes in terms of having too many tools to maintain. We don't have a single pane of glass to take a look at all of our blind spots maybe, or we are actually lacking the context of it. So just to get a bit more into details and understand what these look like, I'm just going to go ahead into my demo environment, and we're going to showcase a bit around what we can do when it comes to, first of all, DevOps security. So this is a Defender for Cloud portal that we have already seen in Giulio's presentation. If we go into the Cloud Security tab in here, we can actually drill down into our DevOps security. So the important thing is here, of course, is the fact that you can add the environments when it comes to GitHub, Azure DevOps, GitLab. You do need to onboard these, so make sure you have that connection in place. And then you will get to see this big overview upon all of our related features. What you'll see in this overview is one single pane of glass when it comes to, first of all, what is the DevOps environment we're connected to. And you've seen here we can filter down actually through these. If we have advanced security status for these ones or not, which is a very important factor, because this talks about whether or not the environment or the pipeline has, the repository more specifically, has GitHub Advanced Security enabled or not. And then additional things when it comes to the pull request status, and if we see in here, what are the different insights for this. And of course, very important, the findings. So when we're talking about vulnerabilities, if we hover over the high severity, the medium severity, low severity signals in here, you see what are these in regards to. So just an example we have in here, more than 200 code findings that are high severity that we need to take a closer look at. So being time conscious, we're going to take a closer look into it right now. So if we click on this repository, which is onboarded to Defender for DevOps, we can see the resource health of it. So you can see the recommendations specific for this particular repository and how you can tackle these. So we are prioritizing vulnerabilities, starting with code to cloud, but we're contextualizing it. We're understanding and we're tracing down any kind of unhealthy resources. So I'm just going to go into one of these recommendations in here, because the most important thing is, what do we need to do to take action? And in the actions part, in the remediate, you have most of the times a very step-by-step into what you need to do with specifically the findings. So in the findings, you can see in here different categories of code that have a particular high vulnerability, and you need to take action for that. Think about different options when it comes to infrastructure as code, when it comes to container mapping, for example, vulnerable containers that are running, or containers running on node that use hosted network. We need to understand what is happening to those. So all of these are actually happening in a particular context. So you see findings by severity, but you also see tactics and techniques. So if we are to actually understand more about this, as we were looking previously at the attack path analysis, Giulio was right. You can actually, of course, drill down into, and was right, and I'm going to show you as well. You can actually drill down a bit more into the repositories and the attack path that has happened. So understand the attack story and understand the resource types that are available. Now, these are, of course, very important, and they go hand in hand in terms of understanding if you have a repository that has that doesn't have branch protection, or it's publicly accessible, or it's even connected to, and it's actually connected to a cloud environment. But also, for example, think about findings when it comes to secrets mapping, when it comes to risk-based prioritization for anything that can come up as a vulnerable attack surface. The next part, of course, is also the Cloud Security Explorer that we were showing you. So this also goes in terms of the anything that you can look for the DevOps part in terms of specific resources and getting more into the recommendations available. So taking action against any vulnerabilities. The next part that I was also discussing, and I'm going to touch that briefly, is also the API part. So it's very important in the workload protection part. Once you have the plan enabled, as we've seen at the beginning of Giulio's demo, you will see an overview for also API security. So when you go into workload protection, you have also an advanced protection API security. So these are specifically, this is specifically a blade made for this visibility for cloud workload owners and IT security teams to get some details into the API published across all API management services within the organization. So you see in here, I have one Azure API management service that is connected, but you see additional details when it comes to our API posture. So you see the base URL in here, how this was discovered, the name, the number of API endpoints. Also, of course, very important if we think about how do we protect against data exfiltration, botnet attacks, OWASP API top 10 threats. We also need to understand the authentication part of it, the days that API has been unused, or maybe it's out of date. And also options when it comes to external traffic that was observed. And this is very important. We also have it connected with our Microsoft Information Protection, the sensitive data endpoints. So we can actually understand when it comes to particular sensitivity risk, what is that data that could be vulnerable and that we need to make sure that we are securing. So I'm just going to go into the example of one. You can see in here the endpoint, and then additional details. So you see the last called date, days that the API has been unused, but also additional things when it comes to, of course, the vulnerability on it, the red being hopefully important enough for you to take a closer look at the authentication option. So this does include different detection against broken authentication, authorization, but also any kind of injection-based attacks, excessive data exposures. And these are just a few numbers from a few options also available in the OWASP API top 10 threat that you need to take a closer look at. More than that, of course, you do need to harden your API configuration. You do need to apply the best security practices and security controls, not only in runtime, but also in pre-deployment. So this is why we actually talked a bit today about DevOps, but also API and how these all integrate with in the Defender CSPM program. And more particularly, if you want to find out more about this plan, we're the team to help you with that. So I'm gonna go ahead and get back to the presentation. And just, of course, it's very important to tackle in the few minutes that are actually left, how we're glad that you were with us today. And this is mostly how we wanted to tackle into the Defender CSPM plan, and also make sure that you understand why we're talking about this, why this is important, and why this is going to be even crucial moving forward.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you so much. It was a great demo, and your insight were really highlighted the interconnected nature of our cloud security. Okay, so as we are actually wrapping up, I only have one or couple of advices. Number one is, my advice is to take always an holistic, proactive approach to cloud security. And when we're talking about proactive, Defender for Cloud, Defender CSPM is the tool of choice over here. Believe us. Start by assessing your current security posture across all your cloud environments. It's a fundamental part that you want to start with. Look, obviously, look for enable Defender CSPM, which will enable and provide the comprehensive visibility. And not only that, will allow you an automated remediation capability. But remember, tools are not just part of the solutions. You need to foster security mindset so you can so you can actually build and culturalize their mindset in your organization. You want to invest in training and awareness program, and you want to make sure that security is always a key consideration in all your cloud initiative, from the earliest planning stages all the way to the ongoing operation. Thank you so much. And I want to just say again, thank you, Diana.
Thank you, Giulio. And yeah, see everyone on our next one, I guess.
Yes.
Great. Thanks so much. The team was great with answering questions. We don't have any that were left unanswered. So with that, I'd like to thank you, Giulio and Diana, for being our guests and for sharing the great information with our community. Also, thank you to the Q&A team who helped us with answering the questions and providing the resourceful information. To all the listeners still on the line, if you're someone who wishes to aid in the protection of the world from cyber threats and desire to have a say in shaping our strategies, blueprints, and recommendations, then we invite you to become part of our security community. Together, we can make a global impact. So join us at aka.ms/securitycommunity. This is also where you'll be notified about the upcoming webinars, events, and other announcements. For those of you who may have additional questions on the topic we just covered or other product-related questions, please feel free to raise them on our Microsoft Tech Community discussion space at aka.ms/mdccommunity. Thank you all for being part of our community and for joining us on these webinars. We hope to see you next time. Goodbye.